Please welcome founder and CEO Peek, Ruzwana Bashir, and founder and CEO Skift, Rafat Ali.
All right, how's it going? Good? So we're in the final stretch, tons of very interesting sessions coming. We're still very honing deep down into travel, tech, the digital travel world. I'm very pleased to have Ruzwana here, who I promised to get on stage 4 years ago, and I did keep my promise 4 years later. Very interesting story. You've been, Peek, for those of you who don't know, describe Peek for them.
Peek is basically building open table for the activities market. So we work with the tour operators who do zip lining or wine tours. We help them come online with their own websites and tools to run their business. And then we also have a marketplace, peek.com, and our app, which helps consumers book great things to do.
So when you launched, you had a sort of a consumer path, and you realized 2 years in that you had to build the back end as well. Turns out the business that Expedia and Booking had to build 15 years ago, which essentially get these hotels online in the first place, is the business that still is wide open that has to be built.
Totally. So it was a little bit earlier, but yes, when we came in, we actually thought we could fake the inventory. So we said, okay,
we'd fake the inventory?
Fake the inventory. You were just saying, okay, well, it's available at 12 o'clock. We'll call the operator. We'll tell them they've got a booking. Turns out, actually, our operators are out in the wild. They're doing their job. And so there's a reason that a lot of the resellers aren't letting you book an activity less than 24 hours in advance. And the reason is because they don't have access to real-time availability. And so really, when we saw the way that consumers were behaving, so about 75% of consumers book activities in a 6-hour window. And
of reaching the destination?
No, of the day, right? So I start the day, in 6 hours I want to do something, right? So that has changed dramatically. So some years ago, that might have been a week in advance that people were booking. Now they book in short windows of time. The mobile phone has really changed everything. So what we quickly discovered was that the consumers wanted to book activities in short windows of time, and yet we didn't know what was available at that period. So that's when we kind of acknowledged that you needed to build the underlying infrastructure and plumbing. Even today, more than 80% of tour operators in America don't have real-time online booking. They just don't have that. And yet, if you look at other spaces like restaurants with Open Table, even doctors' offices with ZocDoc, that's happened. And so we really are building that infrastructure. And a lot of our focus over the last couple of years has been to basically get everything wired up on online.
And do you think you can do both sides of the business?
What we've seen is that other companies have very successfully done that. So one of our investors and on our board is the founder of Trulia. And obviously, you guys saw the guys from Zillow yesterday. They did a great job in the real estate space of kind of going off and getting everybody on the B2B side and the B2C. So there's been a lot of spaces. Arguably, Uber's doing the same thing. So yes, it does seem as though with working with small businesses specifically, a lot of the big things that they need help with are getting new customers, which is driving that B2C side. So there is a great opportunity to build the two businesses together, and they do help each other.
So it turns out now everybody loves tours and activities.
I'm very excited. 4 years ago, they didn't.
Let's go through them. Google said something about that with their Trips app, and they want to add all kinds of stuff. Expedia, TripAdvisor, obviously, Airbnb. Turns out they're very focused on launching that in the next few weeks or months, whatever they're launching. 4 or 5 years ago when you started, tons of other startups were in the tours and activities space, sort of all washed out or are gone. How come they failed and you're still here?
So I'd say that there's a mixture of kind of product as well as timing, right? I think that we embraced mobile. And we did a good job of actually seeing that there was a big opportunity in helping these operators get online. And so we focused a lot of our attention on actually going out and working with these small businesses and helping them get the tools they need to run their business. And as we did that, we actually also made sure that we were making money doing that, right? So, when you think about survival for a startup, cash is king. So if you're not making money and there's no way that people want to give you more money to grow, then you're not going to survive. And so I think a lot of people didn't think about actually being able to scale a business that works and creates value so that you can do that. So I think a big piece of it is the mix of the product, which has been very heavily reliant on mobile. So our businesses are running their business on the go, right? So if you're a tour operator that's doing zip lining, you can have your waivers signed on an iPhone, in the middle of the forest canopy and have it saved in the cloud for 7 years. You never have to worry about it. So we've given a lot of utility to small businesses so that they can actually run their business on the go. And in doing so, we're actually taking a little piece of that transaction. We're now at the point where there's hundreds of millions of dollars of bookings going through the platform, which is great for us. So we've been able to develop a really great product focused on a market timing, which is around mobile, and we've been able to monetize that successfully. And so that's the reason that we've survived and I'd say thrived at this point. We're an 85-person company. We grew about 400.
85 people?
Yeah, we grew about 400% since the start of the year. So it's a really exciting time for us. And to your second comment around everybody's getting excited about tours and activities, that's amazing for us. We've been there going out and wiring everything up, getting the tour operators online, helping these small businesses. And I think now what we're seeing is people saying, well, we want to get access to that inventory. We want to be able to help people book activities. But it's a $100 billion global market, and less than 1% of that market is being sold through the top 3 resellers today. So it's so fragmented. There's a huge opportunity. So actually, there's an opportunity for everybody to be able to sell more of these activities online, but they need to know what's available, and Peek Pro provides that.
So on the consumer side, though, the cost of acquisition for customers is against Google that owns the hundreds of millions of people. I'm guessing at Facebook will do something at some point, or maybe not. Expedia has the customers, TripAdvisor has the customers as well. Competing against that funnel in terms of getting consumers.
Yeah, I think what we found is that we've built a great consumer experience, and we're also actually getting a lot of those people coming to us and saying, we'd love to do partnerships. So for example, we just launched
Yelp one, right?
we just launched a partnership with Yelp a couple of months ago. And so they were kind of looking to enable online bookings of activities on their platform.
So your tours or tours in general that are reviewed on Yelp, if you want to book it, it's through your system.
Exactly, through Peek. So, there are lots of opportunities for us to help consumers book activities, both directly with Peek.com and our app, but also through our partnerships with people like Yelp, Hawaiian Airlines, Virgin America. So there's, I think there's just a ton of opportunity. This space, if you're going to use the real estate example we were talking about yesterday, is, it's like basically it's the real estate space before with Realtor.com, before Zillow and Trulia came along, right? There are opportunities for huge amounts of transactions to happen online, and you're going to see a big change. And I think there's lots of opportunity in a $100 billion market for a lot of companies to be able to take some of that market share. So, I think you won't see that there's just one person that's providing the entire market. You'll see lots of us providing activities for consumers and providing different experiences.
So let's talk about that different experiences, because the traditional tours and activities, attractions comes under it as well. And Matt, I'm looking at you. You have a question for her that I want you to ask later. And so the needs of consumers are changing, though, in terms of the types and tours and activities that they want to do.
Completely. And that's, I'd say that has...
Like, I'm coming to New York. I do not want to go to Empire State, for instance.
Well, Matt would disagree, but Matt's from CityPass, by the way, for those guys that don't know. The basic fact is that consumers want really great depth of inventory, and they want to know what's available. And as you mentioned, they want more local experiences. They want opportunities to perhaps sample some food that they've never had in New York, right? They want to be able to see New York in a different way, which is actually why it's very exciting in our space, because you're seeing that long tail coming online, right? So something like Peek is going out and working with every single small business and helping them come online, so you can have that choice. And we're doing a better job of personalization, so as you come in, you can say, hey, I like to do these kind of activities. What's available for me? What's available today? Because I don't care what's available tomorrow. I'm only here for today. So I think what you are seeing is that there's a real marketplace being built in this space, so that you can get that long tail online and you can start to book that. And I think that's good, and I think that's what the consumer wants. I mean, if you look at any of the retail analysts lately, a lot of what they're saying is spending is shifting from retail towards experiences, right? That's scary for the retailers. It's fabulous for us, right? And I actually think the corollary I would make here is when Uber started, people said, oh, Uber's just going to replace the taxi market. It's now 5 times the size of the San Francisco taxi market. So this idea that you're replacing kind of legacy ideas and that's it isn't true. Like the basic fact is this market is growing, and there's a lot of small businesses we see that are starting to service this new need that consumers have around these local and authentic experiences. And we've seen lots and lots of businesses pop up that didn't exist 5 years ago that are now creating a few $1 million of revenue and being really successful, and they're primarily servicing locals in the towns and cities that they're in.
So at some point, do you think that companies like yours will have to actually create these experiences themselves to have like really local experiences?
I don't think so. I think there are incredible entrepreneurs who are really passionate about where they live. And I think they actually do a better job than a specific company doing it. I think what we see is that people are really passionate foodies. We have an amazing tour operator in San Francisco. She loves food, she loves history, and she does phenomenal tours around the city in the different neighborhoods. You know, that passion that somebody has, and you have so many people who are passionate about their neighborhoods and their communities. So I think actually you'll just have more entrepreneurs starting. And with the tools that we provide them, it's not as hard, right? So, you know, some time ago, trying to have great software to run your business, you know, that would have cost you a lot of money. Now you have a system like Peek Pro where it's off the shelf, it doesn't cost you anything. You're able to use our system and basically get everything you need, a CRM, great marketing, great analytics and reporting, and you can run your business on the go. So I think because these solutions exist, you're actually making it easier for entrepreneurs to start, and we've seen them succeed, and I hope many more of them will. And I think Airbnb is encouraging that with their guides, also taking on opportunities, their hosts taking on opportunities to be guides. So I think you're going to see more people emerging and doing this.
So in terms of the software, a small tour operator, a small tour guide company that's creating local experiences, they're working with Peek, they're working with 5 other companies.
As resellers?
Yes. I mean, or you and 5 other startups that are acting the tours and activities, they're working with Expedia because they just want distribution. Yeah,
so actually what we do is we provide the backend technology so they can run the entire business, right?
So in case they want to work with, name one of your competitors, Zerv, is that the one that went out of business?
Yeah, it did. So, you would only use that system as your backend, right? So the thing with the backend technology is that it's actually the entire calendaring and scheduling that people are using to run their business. It's how their website's also being run. So there's not an opportunity to work with multiple backend players, but there is an opportunity to work with multiple resellers to help sell on the B2C side. So we are actually building out all the infrastructure, and we're the #1 tour operator software in the US. And so we are.
I know that's going to be challenged by other people, though.
I think a lot of people are coming out, trying to build this kind of software. We have an advantage. We've got the most market share.
Isn't Viator software the #1?
Viator doesn't have backend software. They actually plug into Peek software. So they plug into Peek Pro to be able to get access to real-time inventory from the operators that are using Peek. So actually, what we see is that, the B2C players, as you mentioned, like Viator and others, are actually not building their own back-end software, but they are plugging into it, which I think is very smart, because we're going out and building all of these pipes, and just as in other spaces, hotels and airlines, this has happened before. This is not new, and we're building all that back-end infrastructure for everybody to benefit from.
Right. So in terms of your markets, US primarily?
We're very focused on the US. Also Mexico and some of the Caribbean, but it's predominantly in the US.
And that's primarily a result of the resources at the scale that's needed in each city to have enough inventory.
Yeah, but it's also just because you do build local network effects as well. America is a $30 billion market, so there's so much opportunity here, right? And so, we've been able to see that there's a lot of opportunity for us to be able to go out and sign up a lot of the tour operators in the US and bring them online, and there's so many more operators that we can do that with. So there's plenty of opportunity for us in the US, but obviously international is also an opportunity for us that we'll pursue later.
I want to shift a little bit of a gear in terms of startup, because you and I have talked about the startup life and what it takes. Matt, if you do have a question, I was just putting you on the spot. If you do have a question, let me know. I will ask, or you can ask her if you want. In terms of this startup life, when you started, and we were skeptics, Skift was a skeptic of whether.
There were many naysayers. Don't worry, we won't hold it against you.
And so, what made you sort of ignored those skeptics, kept that, and you raised some amount of money, then you raised some amount of money more, and then recently you just raised $10 million.
Yeah.
How did you plow through that?
I think, you're always going to have people that don't think that what you're doing is interesting, or that it's not new. So Brad Gerstner, who spoke yesterday, is one of our investors. And as he said, no idea is new. People have tried it before, right? So a lot of what we heard was, everybody's tried this, it's not going to work. So I think that for us, it was about keeping the focus and really ensuring that we understood what we were trying to achieve. We want to connect the world through experiences. Well, if none of those experiences are connected to the world, that's the first job that we've got to do. So we're really focused on saying, okay, well, we know we've got to achieve this. We looked at these other spaces, whether it's real estate or restaurants or car services, and said, this has happened everywhere else.
Why didn't you do restaurants?
It had already been done by OpenTable, right? So but we saw that they'd done it in all these other fragmented markets that looked really similar to ours. We thought, well, this market's just the same as these other markets in many ways. Why can't it be done there? I think it was helpful that we had great investors supporting us. And so whether that's, the founder of Trulia, who's on our board and an investor, Carl Sparks, who was CEO of Travelocity, Brad, a lot of people who believed that we could do what we were doing, Eric Schmidt from Google. So there were a lot of people who kind of saw this huge opportunity and gave us support and gave us the funding to do it. But absolutely, it's tough as you go through it. But you get through these ups and downs, and as you start to win market share, the product works, you grow, all of these dark times pay off. But it's definitely not easy.
So you mentioned all your investors, all males, by the way. So let's talk about that.
There's one female investor, but unfortunately there aren't a lot of female investors in tech, which is a real shame.
Speaking of female founders, as a female founder, person of color, there's a lot of talk now in where you are based, San Francisco, the tech world. Diversity is certainly the center of conversation in many, many, many ways, and is certainly having an effect in many ways. Certainly not in the VC world yet, but in the startup world it certainly is. As you've been out there in the travel industry itself, which at the top level is absolutely not diverse in any possible way, what barriers have you faced, or do you think travel has been more open arms in many ways?
I think travel is difficult just because people tend to be, they don't love change. I think, the travel space, people have known each other for 20 years often. They've done a lot of things together. And so sometimes it can be a difficult place to enter as a new person. And so having some of the people that kind of introduced us made that easier. I think it's undoubtedly the case there aren't enough women in both travel and tech at the top, right? And I think that that's something that, everybody is aware of and wants to do something about. But there is a difficulty, which is that whether it's somebody at a company or somebody's an investor, it is much easier to back and connect with people who you can see similarities with, right? And so, the basic fact is when somebody—
Didn't you say something, you were doing the anecdote, if you want to go raise money, wear a hoodie and like they told you?
Yeah. So, we were talking about this earlier. When I was going out and raising capital, people said, you're not looking like the entrepreneur that people expect when you come into the room, right? And so because of that, you should probably wear a hoodie and jeans, and don't tell anybody you have an MBA from Harvard Business School, because they're not going to like that, right? And it just that was a little frustrating, because I understand that people have a checkbox. And by the way, my co-founder is a tall white man who went to MIT for his undergrad and master's in computer science. So I was like, he can wear the hoodie, he can check your box there. But it was sad that people felt that that was what you needed to be. And to be honest, I've personally ignored it, because I think that it's pretty inauthentic to just try and tick boxes for people because they're going to judge you based on the way that you look. But it is something that is a problem, I think. And part of it is just that people have pattern matching, but it's also easier to connect with
pattern
someone.
matching, let's just explain that, because people in the industry, travel industry, may not know what pattern matching is in the VC world.
Sure. So pattern matching just means that there are certain incredible companies that have been built, and there's certain, there's a pattern of the entrepreneurs and what they look like and what they've done prior. And so
if a Zuckerberg lookalike comes,
or Bill Gates look, people can kind of say, well, I know, I've seen this model work previously. And so I think when people aren't quite in that mold, it's a little harder for people to say, oh yeah, I can imagine you doing this. And so I think, I think a lot of our investors have been able to make that leap, but for some, it's just kind of, I can't connect with you. And a lot of reasons that investors invest in companies is because they're passionate about the idea and the market opportunity, but if they're going to sit on a board, they also want to like the person and connect with them, right? And if they don't find ways to connect with people, it's hard. Or some entrepreneurs are doing spaces that they're not that interested in. So I think in the Valley, we are working on it. I think there's many more really positive role models that are coming out as successful female entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs of color. So I think it is changing, but at the heart of it's human psychology, which is we're more comfortable with people who are familiar to us, and often that might be the way that they look, gender, it might be the school that they went to, right?
Right. We're out of time, but I do want to ask one question.
Sure.
Profitability.
Yes, we're on the path to profitability next year.
All right. That's it.
Thank you.